Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and welcome to the last month of the year. We are already in December. What in the world? So, are you ready? December. Sticking the landing is the theme of the month. And as it says on the screen, when someone is in a gymnastics performance, at the end of the performance, after all of the leaps and the spins and the jumps and the
somersaults and twirls. The gymnast must stick the landing. They must land in an upright position, preferably feet together, on balance, and firmly grounded. And so we end this year by revisiting our foundation. How do we stick the landing? How do we land in a firm, resolute, and balanced way whenever life shows up and throws us for a loop in whatever way that shows up? Because for a variety of people, it shows up in a variety of ways. But when it shows up, how do we, quote unquote, land on our feet? How do we land? How do we navigate? How do we live in a grounded, capable, life affirming way? By using these timeless principles. And so we're going to use, and we're going to talk about this specifically next week, the elements: air, fire, water, earth, and void, as well as the flow of consciousness and how it shows up as thought, feeling, form, wisdom, spirit. And we are going to wrap all of this into this month as we close out this year and prepare for our grand rising in January. And so, standing on solid air. What in the, you say standing on solid air? Yes, standing on solid air. Everything is created twice. First, it is created in mind, then it manifests or is created in form. Our thinking and our beliefs have a powerful influence on our lives. Emma Curtis Hopkins declared there is no matter as her second denial. Now, while there are many scientists who would disagree, because of where we are scientifically today, they would say, well, there is matter. But what we are recognizing and understanding, both in Emma Curtis Hopkins' affirmation or her second denial, as well as the science that we know, we are blending and recognizing that all matter is an emanation of spirit. Spirit, God being all there is, it is showing up in, through, and as everything, including matter, including the solids, the liquids, like all of it is an emanation of spirit. Quantum physicists will tell us that there are spaces between these quantum particles. There are spaces between, mostly, quote unquote, as they would say, empty space. So what we perceive as solid is nowhere near as solid as we perceive. So what we call thought and what we call form are both ultimately expressions of energy that are being shaped by, being directed by our consciousness. And how our consciousness does so based upon intention and expectation and perception. And so, so we begin with this idea of our core belief, our core teaching, science of mind and spirit. We come back to that as our foundation. What is science of mind and spirit? Breathe. Because that solid air is the foundation upon which we stand. More about that momentarily. Now, anyone who's sat in a science class has gone through some version of solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Solids, molecules are closer. Liquid, molecules are a little further. Gas, a lot further. Plasma, something altogether different. Now, when we're talking about science of mind and spirit, new thought, when we're talking about spirituality, We're recognizing that all of this ultimately, in terms of whether it's the quantum field, regardless of what, all that we are talking about is a divine emanation, a divine incarnation, a divine expression of God. So it doesn't matter what it is, the glass of coffee or tea that you're drinking, God. The sofa upon which you are sitting, God. The notebook and the pen that you are, God. The clothing you're, God. Your physical body, God. The blood, God. The electrical impulses that are moving through your neurological, God. All the firing of synapses, God. All there is God. So we're invited to be mindful that even though we may not necessarily see God, we can see God. John 3:8 says, "The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it is coming from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit." And simply what this is offering us is the realization that we don't see God as a tangible, we don't see spirit as a tangible thing that we can follow and recognize, that's, but what we do see is how spirit, how God shows up. And then we see where it goes and where it is coming from. When you rise and walk out of a room, that's God rising and walking out of the room. And the room is God as well. And so when we step into a deeper foundation of recognizing that everything we see, everything we touch, everything we hear, everything we smell, etc., all of it is giving us access to the divine. So we need not look for, I don't have to look for molecules and atoms and quantum particles in order to pick up a highlighter. I recognize that there is a highlighter that is made up of molecules, atoms, quantum particles, etc. And that back of all of that is God expressing as quantum particles, atoms, molecules, etc., that show up as this thing called a highlighter. And when I am able to recognize, this too is God, there's a different level of awareness that comes with it, a different level of reverence that comes with it. And I'm not saying it's like, oh, there's a highlighter. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when I can recognize this as being God, then I can recognize you as being God. I recognize them as being God. And in the same way that I use this, not as a cigar, because that's not what it is, not that I would smoke one anyway, not as it's a toothbrush. When I recognize what it is, then I honor it for what it is being used or what it was created for. Why is this here? And when I can see that that too is God and I see you as God, then I'm far more capable of seeing you as, why are you here? You are here because you are a divine expression of the one. And in that, I am able to connect. I am able to honor. I am able to love. I am able to support you in your divine expression. Breathe. Solid as air, standing on solid air. So we all know who this guy is, and we know, right now he's walking on the ground. But we know that in a moment, In the twinkling of an eye, that moment becomes, and Superman takes to the air. And because of his power, the air upon which he stands is just as solid as the ground upon which he stood. Now, so the question for us becomes, what does this mean for us? How does this show up in our lives? It shows up as trust. Do we trust that even though we cannot see love, love is present? Do we trust that even though we cannot see faith, faith, life affirming, is present? Do we trust that even though we cannot see the isness and allness of all that God is, that God is present? And that Dr. Holmes said, whatever is true about God is true about you. Do we trust that? Because if we do trust that, it affects the way in which we move through our lives. For example, suppose I was getting ready to sit down in this chair. And right before I sat down, Tracy said, "Rev, don't sit down. That chair is broken." One, do I trust that what she is telling me is the truth? Because if I do, then I'm not going to sit down. Now, if I ask, is this chair one of the broken ones? Say we're at work. Tracy's setting up, one of the presentation rooms for a meeting. And I know that there's some chairs that were broken. And I don't know which ones because they were separated. The broken ones were put on one side of the room and the other ones were put on the other side of the room. I don't know which side is which side. So I go to one side and I ask Tracy, are these the chairs that are broken? And Tracy says, no, they're not. So I take one, I place it down and I sit on it because once again, I trust what she's telling me. Two, I trust that because the chair is not broken, it will support me. Trust. We live, move, and have our beingness with some version of trust every day. We go into a store and we trust that the store will have what we want, but we trust the structural foundation of the building. We get on an elevator, we trust. We get in a car, we trust. We drive on the highway, we trust. We turn on the stove, we trust. We open a can of whatever and eat, we trust. We go to a restaurant and eat. We trust that we will not get food poisoning. We trust because we eat. We use this thing called trust all the time. But when it comes to this thing called spirituality, religion, theology, the divine, community, relationship, finances, when it comes to certain areas, trust becomes a prickly word. Trust becomes so challenging. And what I am saying is, let's move into an era where the trust that's our everyday occurrence and the rarity to trust merge. Now, that does not mean we are going to blindly trust whoever this person is. That's how cults are formed. Right? I'm not saying to blindly trust and just, I trust. No, we still discern. But even discernment is trusting because if I say close your eyes and I hand you these two things and you feel it, your discernment is your ability to trust that what you are feeling is going to tell you what each item is. So discernment is also an element of trust. And what I'm inviting us into or asking us to do is merge that thing of trust and be willing to be more vulnerable, be willing to feel more deeply in order to transform our lives. Dr. Holmes says, and there was going to be a remix on this, but we'll get there in a second. The New Age, and he's not talking about New Age in terms of, anyhow, the New Age demands that the fear and superstition surrounding religious convictions be removed, and that the truth, plain, simply, and direct, be presented, that people may learn to live now, live in the present, with the assurance, trust, with the assurance that that which is the eternal God is their refuge. Now, you may be, let's go ahead, because I was going to do it in the beginning, but so when he says New Age, he's not talking about the New Age, when people separate. So this is a New Age store and there's crystals and all kinds of stuff. He's not referring to that. He's referring to New Thought. But in the era of Holmes, this is the terminology used, as is refuge. Now, this is very traditional Christian language, refuge. And like I said, I was going to remix, but for the sake of our conversation, I will not remix it. But what I will do is share that refuge basically means sanctuary. It means asylum. It means safety, retreat, a port in a storm, and it means protection. So let's revisit. Superstitions surrounding blah, 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 all that stuff is removed, and that the truth, plain truth, simple truth, direct truth, be presented so that people may learn to live in the present, right here and right now, with the trust, with the assurance, with the certainty that that which is the eternal God offers itself as them sanctuary, asylum, protection, retreat. How does the allness and isness, the universe itself, offer you an individualized expression of it safety? What does that mean for you? What does that look like for you? That it offers itself a port in the storm. It offers itself as you this place of it offers you a level of or a degree of retreat. And not retreat necessarily meaning retreat and run away, because it means retreat, to step back away from whatever this painful confusion, etc. You step back, you step away from it, you regain your foundation, and you step back in. What does it mean that this isness and allness is offering itself as you any of this refuge? What does that look like? What does that feel like for you? Breathe. Dr. Holmes says, effective prayer is an acknowledgement of the presence and the power of good, which Emma Curtis Hopkins said, my good is my God. So, effective prayer is an acknowledgement of the presence and the power of God, which is good, because it is goodness itself. It is an acknowledgement of this presence, which is as close to us as this power is acting on our acceptance. It is an acknowledgement of this presence as being close to us. Is this presence close to us? How close to you are you? Then that presence is close to you. Okay, so effective prayer is an acknowledgement of this presence, good, is close to us, as close to you are as to you, and that this power is acting upon our acceptance. So when you speak, when you sign, when you write, when you type, are you accepting your power to speak, to sign, to write, to type? Yes. Because if you're not accepting this as a power, I know that I can sign. I know that I can type. I know that I have the capacity to do so, which is why I can do so. So that power, good, which is already present as you are to you, in order for it to be unleashed, you must accept it. Do you accept that that which is God, that which is good, is as close to you as you? Do you accept that as the truth of your being? And he says, Dr. Hobbes is talking about effective prayer. Well, pause for a second, because when we're talking about effective prayer, you may automatically jump to affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment. And I want us to recognize, as this song says, our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Now, that being the case, let's backtrack. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Effective prayer is an acknowledgement of the presence and the power of good. It is acknowledging this presence as being as close to you as you are to you, and that this power is acting to the degree that we accept it. And effective prayer is what we are always praying, because we're always thinking. So if we're always thinking, we're always praying. How effectively are we thinking? How effectively are we praying? Well, that comes back to our foundation. How important is a strong foundation? What is your foundation? Now, when you look at this image, what do you see? You see a very rough sketch, a rudimentary diagram of a building, which includes the foundation of the building. But what I want us to recognize is, because God is all there is, no matter what we're looking at, we're able to see a parable, an analogy, a representation of spirit. And so when we see the foundation of the building, we recognize that as demonstration of our foundation. The substructure, our mental equivalents, and everything that is built upon that, our life experiences. So then the question becomes, what is the foundation upon which your life is built? What is the foundation upon which your life is built? Now, when we go back to the basics of science of mind and spirit, the first foundational belief for this teaching is we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause, period. That's the foundation upon which this teaching rests. What does that mean to you, though? See, it's one thing to have it in mind and theorize, but it's an altogether different thing to embody it. Because the name of this thing, God, source, spirit, etc., the name is unimportant. Whatever name works for you to convey in your mind this infinite presence and power is the name that you should use. Recognizing also that that name may change over time as your understanding and your relationship with this infinite thing, source, spirit, God, changes. As you change, it changes. Your words about it changes. Your relationship with it changes, just as you change. Right? Think about how you may have had a childhood nickname that you no longer have or use. You may have clothing that you wore as a child that you no longer wear. The way that you have relationship with yourself, with your body changes. Well, that's a representation that your relationship with the divine also changes. So the important thing is to realize that there is only oneness, and that this oneness shows up in the form of all that is, and yet it is still always only one. And so as we deepen our awareness of this, we realize that God is not just within us, and that we're not just within God. We realize that God is. God simply is. There is no inside, outside in the realm of the absolute. There's simply God. For us, linguistic purposes, yes, we refer to the inside. Go in the house. Take it out of the car. My organs are inside my body. I have skin on the outside for linguistic purposes. Yes. But when we are referencing this thing called God, there is no inside for God to be. And technically, there's no inside of it for us to be. There's only it. Breathe. God is! Exclamation point. No matter the appearance around us, which might evoke a variety of feelings based upon any of our old paradigms or beliefs about lack and scarcity and separation, we are not, and we cannot ever be separated from that which is. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. It can't be, because that would imply creation and God separate, and creation, like Pac-Man, wagga, 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 has eaten up or devoured. It doesn't work that way. There is only God. So the creation, which is God, is an expression of the all that is. This Godness is more than what it creates, right? It's not, because sometimes we focus on form far more than the spirit back of it. So it is far more than simply the creation. We see the effects of God, but we don't see God itself. Just as we see the effects of the wind, but we don't see the wind itself. And so we learn about the nature of God by observing all of its creation, how it shows up, how it outpictures in everything, including ourselves. This is the relationship we are invited into. This is the awareness. Our foundation, God is. Now, God being all there is means it is being you. You are an incarnation of it, as is everyone and everything. That is the foundation upon which we, in this teaching, build our lives. There are other things. There's a quote, and I want to say it's by Hillel, but I could be wrong. But the quote basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, the quote basically says, It's the golden rule to treat other people as you wish to be treated, to not do harm to other people. Anything that you see that is causing harm, don't do that to other people. That is the key lesson of the Torah. Everything else is commentary. This, God is all there is the essence of science of mind and spirit. All of the rest is commentary. All of the rest is the manner in which the foundation upon which this rests now builds the structure. How anchored are you to this as your foundation? Because if it's a strong foundation, then as Dr. Holmes says, religious science is a religion of joy. Now, back in, was it November, we talked about words. And I know for some folks that word religion is not a good word. And yet, it's a word. Dr. Holmes says religious science is a religion of joy. If our foundation is firmly rooted, do we have joy in our lives? Not just individually, but collectively. Religious science is a religion free from fear. Religious science is a religion of faith that is justified by results. We are known by our fruits, in other words. So what are the fruits? What is the evidence of your faith? What is the evidence of your firm conviction to the foundation that you understand that God is all there is and that it is you as well as everything else and everyone else? What is the evidence? How is this showing up in your life? How are you standing on solid air, in other words? Sri Aurobindo says, when the dividing ignorance is cured, which gives us the sense of a gulf between life and matter, it is difficult to suppose that mind, life, and matter will be found to be anything else than one energy triply formulated. In other words, mind, life, and matter are one. They are simply showing up in different ways. Just like we could say H2O, water, ice, steam. Three different forms of one chemical compound. Mind, life, matter, three different forms of one divine presence and power. And as I asked before, what is the evidence of your faith? What is the evidence of our conviction? What is the evidence of the foundation upon which we stand? How do we come together to heal the world, to transform the world? Now, recently, a minister that I saw, I think it was on TikTok, was or Instagram, was referencing the idea that we are not here to save the world. Because what his reference was, there's the world of corruption, there's the world of war, there's the world of lack and scarcity and all of that stuff. And yes, those are parts of the world. But when we talk about the world, what is the filter? What is the lens that we are using to quantify or categorize world? We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. I know Tracy's like, stop saying stop. You get the point. We are one world. The earth is the world on which we live, the planet on which. So the question isn't, are we here to save the world? It depends on, that could turn into a whole symposium on what world are we talking about? What does it look like to save the world, et cetera, et cetera. And that for right now is neither here nor there. Simply our vision for CSL, a world, a planet, a culture and society, a global culture and society that truly works for all. That is the work we are invited to do. And so how do we do that? How are we called into action to create and to manifest that through the presence and the power? Breathe. Bayard Rustin reminds us, the proof that one truly believes in whatever it is in the action that we take. All of our actions are based upon our belief in something. As a metaphysical liberation theology, science of mind and spirit must remain vibrant, relevant, and applicable to all of the discord, dis-ease, and disenfranchisement that people the world over continue to experience in a vast number of ways. While being comfortable and safe on our meditation cushion can certainly be part of our spiritual practice, it must not be where we stop. So let's explore the ways that we can be greater active demonstrations of our life-affirming faith. Breathe. This week's affirmation declaration, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me on our second go round. I stand on a solid mental equivalent which directs the flow of my life. Together. I stand on a solid mental equivalent which directs the flow of my life. Breathe. And so it is. This week's Thursday night study questions or your own personal journal questions. What circumstances tend to hook me into forgetting the oneness? And what can I do to return to truth? In other words, my foundation. Number 2, what do I really believe in as evidenced by my life? Based upon my life, what is it showing that I really believe? And what are some old beliefs that I would now like to update or eradicate? We could stop right there and that would, but we shall go on. Number 3, when I notice something turning out in a manner that is less satisfactory, like I would prefer something else, I ask myself, this is what you're doing, I ask myself the following questions. Since the law, the creative process, always manifests our beliefs, what does this result show that I might be believing beneath the surface? And how does this always actually manifest? Now, let's dissect this for a moment before we go on to our next question, journal point. The law and the creative process always manifest based upon our beliefs. Now, it's easy to metaphysical malpractice that with the what's in your consciousness. It's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, for example, use me. Last year, when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, when I noticed something turning out in a less satisfactory way than I would prefer not to have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. So, but I was diagnosed nonetheless. So I asked myself the following questions. Since the law, the creative process always manifests based upon my beliefs, what does this result show that I might be believing beneath the surface? Prostate cancer. What is it showing that I might believe beneath the surface? Fear related to mortality, fear related to disease. This diagnosis is giving me access to a variety of other beliefs that may surface as a result. Now, my invitation is taking both of these, step back and say, what am I now choosing to consciously place into the law? What am I now choosing to consciously, remember, update or eradicate? What am I choosing to do with this belief about mortality? This fear around mortality. What is my invitation now regarding my beliefs and my consciousness? It's not saying my beliefs or consciousness created prostate cancer. We're not going down that road. What we're saying is this has happened. Now, what am I invited to think, do, say, feel? It's set. What am I now? Because the law of the creative process is always acting. It is always, so now that I know this, and that, now what am I consciously choosing to focus, to direct this power into creating and manifesting? Which takes us into, how does this always, quote unquote, always, it always manifests? Are you not always believing something? And whatever that belief is, it's going to manifest in some way, shape, or form. So when we cross the street, we look both ways because there's a belief. Now, just because I believe that it's safer to look both ways before I cross the street, because I don't want to get hit by a car, that belief doesn't create, oh, you're going to get hit by a car because you're thinking about it. Once again, no, we're not talking about that. But we are talking about the belief in, why do I look both ways? To remain safe. Well, let's extrapolate. Let's do an exegesis of that. What does it mean for you to be safe? Remember a couple slides ago, refuge, safety. What is it, your belief system? What does it mean to be safe? Safe in order to do, and safe from what? Simply be present to. Because most of us are operating on autopilot and we don't know where we're flying. We don't know where the craft is going because we're now on Janeway's Enterprise, but the coordinates were put in there by Captain Kirk. But what if I don't want to go to Romulus? Well, those are the coordinates Captain Kirk put in. But what if I want to go to Vulcan? Well, you have to change the coordinates. How do I do that? Oh, well, let's go talk to somebody so you can get the instruction manual and figure it out. Let's talk to somebody about what is the beliefs. What are the beliefs what is the mental equivalent that is showing up that is going to take you somewhere where you may not want to go, so that you can recalculate and recoordinate to now go where you do want to go, to build the structure of your life in a manner in which you do want it to be built. Okay, we spent a lot of time on question number 3. Number 4. How can I trust, allow, and nurture more of the divine nature, good, loving kindness, and eternal givingness to express in my life, thereby allowing me to be of greater service to the world? How can I trust, allow, and nurture more of the divine nature of good, the divine nature of loving kindness, the divine nature of eternal givingness? How can I nurture, allow, and trust it more to express in my life so that I may be of greater service to the world? Breathe as we enter into that space of prayer, recognizing the isness and allness that we call by many names: God, Source, Spirit. It is the solid air upon which we rise, upon which we stand. It is that ineffable, infinite, and eternal all that is, the seen, the unseen, the yet to be seen, the formed, the unformed, and the yet to be formed. It is all that is. Yin, yang, and the space between. It's all that is. And so, as we enter into this atmosphere of prayer, because we're always praying, as we enter into this atmosphere of prayer, we are recognizing that that which it is, we are right here and right now. And so, we anchor to our foundation that God is all there is. We align our mental equivalence with that foundation, and upon that, we build our life experiences. We trust the foundation. We trust the mental equivalence to support us, to offer us refuge when we need, to offer us the ability to take flight when we need or want. We trust it to give us all that we need to be, do, and have in order to be a beneficial presence in the world, whereby our lives and our evolution transform and change the collective. That by us doing this work right here today, we are shifting and moving the collective into a world that works for all. Does that mean we stop here in the comfort of this prayer? No. But it means we move out into that space of discomfort, still praying because our thoughts are prayers. It means we move out into the world in confrontation sometimes, still praying. In debate sometimes, still praying. In feeding the hungry, still praying. In housing the unhoused, still praying. Calling for a ceasefire, still praying. Creating world peace, still praying. Ending racism and sexism, etc., still praying. Still praying. Still praying. And the creative process, that which is the law, says yes. And it creates, it manifests, it aligns, it coordinates, it does what is its to do without fail. Still praying, still creating, still manifesting, still becoming, still praying. And so it is. Namaste, blessings, much love and appreciation. See you over in Zoom.